And we are live. Welcome back, everybody. Just gonna do a quick fitness Q&A from the questions I saw on Reddit, and after that, we'll take it from there. If you have any questions during the live stream, leave them in the chat, and I'll get to it. And if you catch this live stream after it has ended, leave them in the comments below, and I'll get to them afterwards. So going for the first question. For concentric movements, should I move the weight as fast as possible while retaining form? Yes, there is some research stating that during the concentric portion, the squeeze, for example, during the bench press, that you should move it as fast as possible because speed matters. And the faster you move the weight, the more you activate the motor patterns that help you fire while performing the exercises. So there is research that suggests that you should move it as fast as possible if you can control the weight. So it's the question about control versus speed, and if you can maintain both, you're in good hands. Second question, do leg raises target upper abs, obliques, and to a certain degree or just lower? I think this question depends on how your pelvis is orientated. So if your pelvis is in an anterior tilt, neutral, or posterior pelvic tilt, that will really depend on how effective your abs, upper, lower, or obliques fire. And it depends on the angle. So if your spine has even a slight bit of curvature to either side, it can target one oblique over the other. So it really just depends. There is no, and you can really force certain activations like going into an anterior pelvic tilt or going into keeping a neutral pelvis while doing a leg raise to target different abs. So I think this question is a little bit too general and it really depends on how you control your pelvis. With pull-ups, you've been progressing with chin-ups. You've been doing as many reps as possible AMRAP and negatives up to 8, but you recently swapped to 111 reps, full reps, going up 1 rep on one set a session after making tremendous dip progress doing that. You stalled out today at 333. Should I repeat from 111 or go back to negatives? It's dealer's choice here because it sounds like you're doing stuff that's working, and if it's not broken, you shouldn't fix it. And right now, you seem to find a nice routine. You start off with negatives, then you're progressing slowly into full reps, and you have just stalled out recently at 333, which is great because you start off with negatives in the beginning. So you can either do, for me, if I was me, I would personally do a mixture of both. I would still try to do the full reps, but then maybe the last set or last 2 sets implement some negative work so that you still are training the movement, you're still getting stronger and increasing mind body connection. So, four, are there any exercises I can do to deepen my squat mobility? I used to do ATG, but snapped my back twice, so I switched to parallel. I want to progress towards ATG. However, I'm wondering if it's just genetic or if there's any work to do to progress there. Sounds like you have some issues with your back, hips, your pelvis, could be anything. A side joint, hard to say. I think you should get looked at, or you need to do some self evaluation to see what's going wrong. There's no one exercise that help can help fix you, if to answer your question, because this requires you to look at the whole body up and down to see what has been what has been working. So like for example, if you have a desk job and you're sitting 10 hours and you don't do any mobility work and then you go to do heavy squats, that'll that's not a good recipe for long-term progress. So it's just reevaluating how your lifestyle is, seeing if it matches what your results have been, and then making changes towards that. and getting professional help from physical therapists is something you might want to consider, and someone that has barbell experience too, because it is frustrating to have injuries like this and consistent injuries in the same area, and you want to make progress but you don't know how to go about it. So my suggestion would be take a step back, understand that, yes, this has happened to you, but this is not forever. Start thinking about your current lifestyle, seeing if there's any patterns that you're noticing, seeing if there's any strengths, weaknesses, seeing there's anything that you're doing that's out of the ordinary. Then when you do squat, where do you feel the pain? Do you feel anything funny? What have you been doing that day, before, during, and after? And just evaluate your entire life step by step so that you can find and start to narrow down what has been working and what hasn't been working. And you really want to focus on the not has been working part. All right. Fifth question. I've been following a basic beginner routine outlined in the Reddit sidebar for a little over 2 weeks, but you've been liking it so far. But you have plenty of free time when you want to spend it more in the gym. You want to add more exercises to the routine. You want to do like more curls and split squats on the the two separate days. So they usually separate the program into A and B days. And my suggestion is don't mess with the program, but usually the program involves having more cardio or aerobic work. So if you do have an itch to do more, start with that. And then if you find a different program more that is more customizable and you can add more accessories, I would do that then. You can add your suggestions. But for the most part, don't mess with the routine right now. Stick to it. I know you are excited, and that's great. But part of understanding what works for your body and what doesn't is to have some structure. And after some period of time, you reevaluate it. When you were just doing that structure, did it work and did it not work? Or did it work exceptionally well? Or did you just get meh progress? And that's how you understand, okay, do I increase more frequency, decrease more frequency, keep the frequency the same, and add more accessories? And that's how people make their own customizable program that works just for them. Just- Next question. What should I expect from an online personal trainer? Right now, they program a month's worth of workouts, and then when I message them a question, they respond within 2 to 3 days. Should I be expecting more? Is this typical? Well, really, when you come to a personal trainer, you should have your own set of goals, and you should really have this talk before you scheduled or hired them for their services. Depending on the personal trainer, they can do form checks, ask about what you can ask them about their program, about why they're doing the programming. They should be talking about your specific goals, and yeah, just ton of the services personal trainers usually do. Their goal or what they want is for you, the client, to get stronger and to match to have your personal satisfaction go up. In other words, after X amount of weeks or months, you hit your goal or close. You hit your goal, not even closer. You hit or exceed your goal, and because of the guidance of the personal trainer. If you're confused, I'm assuming that either one, you didn't approach the situation with enough, without being too specific. You weren't specific enough on what you want, or the personal trainer didn't understand or didn't want to understand how to train you and to guide you through the process, or it could be a little bit of both. Not saying that your personal trainer is bad, but if you do have these concerns, you should bring it up with the personal trainer and that it should be clarified then. So this is looks like a talk for your personal trainer and some evaluation on your end as well. All right, next question. I have a noticeably weaker left side than right. Do I keep normal progressive overload or should I wait for my left side to catch up? I've experienced left wrist pain while none on my right, so would wristbands help with that? For the wristbands part, that could be a sign of injury, and adding a wristband or wrist wrap would just put a band-aid on the problem. You gotta find out what's wrong and then address it head on, not just put on some wrist sleeves or some wrist wraps rather. Yeah, you don't put on wrist wraps and then just hope that you can do more in the future. And as for the left side catching up, usually if you're doing barbell movements, you would want to continue moving the weight that you've been moving, and it would just naturally correct itself. But because you take notice of it and you are aware of it, that's good. You have good body muscle, mind body awareness, and you can take accessories and certain movements through its range of motions unilaterally. So that would be my suggestion. You would focus on the accessories for unilateral work, but you still maintain, if it's barbell movement, you still continue on progressing. You have an imbalance between both my shoulders. One side looks higher and bigger than the other. What should you do? This could be a ton of different issues. Most likely or not, it could be uh, tight upper trap. It could be right versus left dominance. One side is definitely higher than the other. It could be rotator cuff um, positioning. It could be the way your scapulas are set. One might be tilted or flared, causing yeah causing muscles to be more active or not active on one side or the other. More information is needed. More pictures need to be needed, and definitely a range of motion assessment needs to be needed for this question. All right, next question. You're a 20-year-old female, 114 pounds, been stalling and regressing on your overhead press the last month, and wondering if you have any tips. The other lifts, including upper body push movements, are slowly increasing, but overhead press refuses to budge and has even started getting weaker in the past 2 weeks. About a month ago, I was doing sets of 12 with 30 kilograms, but now I can only manage to do 6 to 8 reps. No idea what's causing this. My nutrition is fine. Eating a ton of protein, have a rest day in between lifting days. You would perform 4 sets of overhead press 1 to 2 days a week. Any suggestions, tips, or advice? If you haven't on your program, because it sounds like you customized on your own. If you haven't tried deloading, you should definitely deload. But if you have deloaded multiple times, then you need to start thinking about nonlinear type of programming, which which will take either percentages or RPE, and then you'll same concept, trying to increase volume and while varying your frequency, intensity, all that good stuff, and that's how you'll make progress. But it's not as straightforward as linear progression, but it's very similar. In your case, 30 kilograms for your body weight. I have noticed that a ton of females do have difficulties with upper body movement, bench, overhead press, but it's not to say that you haven't been training as long. So yeah, you should still implement what has been working for strength programming principles for decades. You can either add more sets, either increase the frequency, add more reps. First, I would take a deload first. Then I would start working your way back up because it did mention that you took one, and so that would be the first thing. Take one and then start working your way back up. Four sets is 4 sets is average, I would say. anywhere between 3 to 5 and 1 to 2 days a week. Yeah, also average amount of time. So so good job on the progress so far, and take your deload and start progressing again. If I'm cutting, how often should I take a deload week? I'm sitting on a pretty aggressive cut right now. You're running 6 days, push pull leg split, and so I lift heavy on the first 3 days to hold on to strength, rest, and cut back 20%. Is this the best option when it comes to conserving muscle? Sounds like you are doing what you think is the right thing to do. In terms of taking a deload week just because you're cutting, deload weeks aren't made because you're bulking, cutting, or whatever. It's made on the amount of volume you do, and then you tailor it down. You taper it off and off a percentage of your working sets to go down so that you are able to recover that week so that you don't hurt yourself and you don't burn yourself out. On a cut, the stresses are even greater. So, but you seem to be on the right track with knowing that you want to conserve muscle while on a cut. So, take the deload week as your program scheduled. I'm sure the weights are fairly at a reasonable amount for what you're handling because you are aware of the goals and secondary goals and what is needed. So great job on your part. And just continue with your cut until you hit the end week of your goal. Nope, don't take extra deload weeks. Don't add any deload weeks. Don't. Maybe you would. I was gonna say maybe you want to consider taking it early, but I'll retract that statement. Just follow what's on the program. If anything, you're lifting too heavy for that week, and you should tailor down the intensity. Use less weight, and just focus on making sure you feel the squeeze. It's a bodybuilding type workout when you're trying to conserve muscle because strength would be a secondary goal, and yet right now you want to maintain your muscle while having the physique you want. So that would be my advice on that. Okay, that's it for the questions I have. Thank you all for listening. Again, if you have any more questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to them.